Please welcome to the stage CEO of Vercel and creator of Next.js, Guillermo Rauch.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Vercel Ship. This is our first ever in-person Vercel user conference, which I love. I love in person. Of course, we have Next.js Conf, but that's specific to Next.js. Today, we get to talk about all of our other investments, the web as a whole, the big picture. So if you know anything about me, you know that I've been betting on the web for basically my entire life at this point. So let me take you back. Wow, what a reverse glow up. So what's different? Well, for one, I had a lot of hair. Our logos look different. But also, Vercel, Zeit at the time, was just two things: Next Dev and Now Deploy. Remember now? Two commands focused purely on utility for developers first. I was solving problems for myself as a developer. I had been building a website for my startup, and as you know, you have a startup, you have to launch fast, you have to begin iterating. And how do you choose your tech stack for your startup? Well, you go in Hacker News, you go in X, you see what's trending, and you pick it. And at the time, React was trending. But guess what? For me, React really made a huge difference. To me, that was like a new beginning. I became React build until today. And as I'm trying to get this website out into production, to raise my seed round, to launch my product, I realized that I'm spending weeks just setting up all this stuff around React, like Kubernetes. Remember Kubernetes? Bundlers, compilers, transpilers, CSS in JS. Remember CSS in JS? That was last week, though. Yeah. So that's not how I wanted to spend my time. So instead of spending weeks setting up all this stuff to get that website out, I pivoted. And I spent 8 years of my life building a cloud platform, as one does, to ensure that no developer had to deal with all that stuff ever again. So for me, this is deployment infrastructure from the point of view of somebody that really just wants to ship. And that's why we call the conference Vercel Ship. We wanted to focus on great user experiences. And looking back, quite honestly, we were more concerned with the design and how things worked than the instance types of the multi-AZ, high availability, 3XL metal web scale cluster. So we just wanted to ship. And it turns out that I wasn't alone. There's dozens of us. There's so many great companies that have joined us in this journey. And many of these are here today, and you can get to meet their creators. But really, there's a huge movement behind this. It starts with open source, and Vercel just crossing 1 million active developers with Next.js, as well as supporting over 35 other open source front-end frameworks. And when you deploy these frameworks on Vercel, we're proud to share that we're close to hitting 100 billion weekly requests served through our managed infrastructure. And last but not least, I'm proud to share that we've just passed $100 million in annual revenue, which is an important milestone for us because it means that so many of you trust us to build and be your partner in the future of the web. Those two initial utilities we started have unlocked a whole category, which we now call the front-end cloud. The front-end cloud. It even has a fancy marketing term. That's how you know it's real. I do love the term because that's exactly what this is. It's an entire cloud platform designed for and optimized for and built by the front-end developers and teams that deeply care about the user experience. Teams with billions of users, as we saw, and you all out there with no users yet. And honestly, for folks that appreciate design engineering, that want to start with the desired end state, a beautiful product that works great, that is personalized, and then work backwards to composing backends and APIs, and all of that necessary backend infra. So we started with the idea that to build the best possible cloud, we had to invest in the best possible open source tools and creators. Open source frameworks drive the two critical pieces of our front-end cloud: the developer experience platform and our managed infrastructure platform. And together, they cover the entire software development lifecycle, from idea to production. So the X platform, as the name implies, it's all about shipping fast, having a great experience, but also with the right direction. So these are tools that, crucially, you can all implement incrementally into your projects, no matter where you host, in order to then build and ship great experiences. But if you want to offload all the hard parts of managing infrastructure and offload that to us, we built the infrastructure in tandem with those frameworks that I talked about. So Vercel's managed infrastructure is just one push away for you and secure by default, which is a huge theme for today. So overall, the web is not static. It's changing so fast, faster than ever, especially with now AI tools and assistants whispering in our ear what we have to build. So just a year ago, I was thinking that I had to ship my NFT Bored Ape, and now I'm shipping my GPT wrapper. Just let that sink in. Think about how fast things are moving. So today, we're inviting you to push the envelope and push the future of the web with us. Our mantra is seeing is believing. And today, I'm going to show you, together with our team, real demos, real UIs. And it really all starts with an idea. So let's bring on Jared Palmer to talk about how we're helping you get started with that idea faster.
One of the hardest parts of development is that initial blank page. You have an idea, but getting it from your head to the screen can just feel daunting. Yeah, there are templates and boilerplates, but I'm talking about that just fundamental moment. And you want to start with the UI. And that moment is why we built V0. It's an AI-powered tool that lets you generate React code from simple text prompts and images. Since we launched V0, the Vercel community has generated over 3 million UIs. That's 3 million times the developers have gone from idea to code faster than ever before. We've been listening to your feedback, and we've been working hard to make V0 even better. So with that, let me bring up Lee Robinson, our head of DevRel, to show you what V0 can do. All right, Lee.
All right, what do we want to build?
Well, I think since we're at Vercel Ship, let's build a conference talk submission form.
Okay.
And
anything else?
For Vercel Ship.
Okay, for Vercel Ship. Sound good?
Feels right.
Let's do it. So what's happening here while we're building this?
So V0 took that prompt, and now it's actually going to generate React code using Shad CNUI and Tailwind CSS just for you after we get out of this gigantic queue.
There's a lot of demand right now to be building UI, I guess.
Yeah, and it gives us 3 different options. And so
Here's
we can choose one of them. This one looks pretty good. And if you popped open the code tab, you actually see the React code streaming in live.
Oh, nice.
Pretty neat. So it looks like that one's finished.
Yeah.
Use that one, it looks pretty good.
I like it.
So the idea is this is a great starting point, but we can even do better.
Okay.
So let's make this even spiffier. Let's
make it pop?
Yeah, make it pop. Maybe make it, you know what's better than 1 column?
Yeah.
2 columns.
2 columns.
Let's go 2 columns. And then let's make it 2 columns. Let's put the form on the left side. And on the right side, let's put the conference information and a testimonial. or testimonials.
Okay,
Let's do it.
that sounds good. Make it pop. Who knows what it's going to do? Make it pop.
Make it pop. Make it pop is pretty risky, but
I mean, two
we'll go for
columns
it
is
anyway.
good. It's definitely better.
We'll do it live.
Yes. And it streams in the code, so I can always go check out the code as it's coming in, as it's working.
And there it is.
Nice.
Streaming. We
I
love
love
streaming.
streaming. We got some flex box going. We got the left side first. There's our form. Nice. Talk title, Building the Future of the Web. Not bad.
Yeah, we're looking for speakers to share their knowledge at Vercel Ship, submit your talk proposal and knowledge. Love that for us.
Okay.
And here comes the conference information.
Okay.
We got an icon for the date. We've got an icon for the location. It thinks that we're in San Francisco, but we're not.
We're not.
We're in New York. What do attendees say? Ooh, we got a little
Vercel
placeholder.
Ship is the
Sarah
premier
Williams.
conference.
All right, well, look, this thing's pretty good, but if you need that extra layer of precision, you actually just edit the code directly. So let's see, instead of Sarah Williams, why don't we change that to Scarlett Johansson?
Or Sky for short.
Or Sky, yeah,
Yeah.
either one. We can just press save and go from there. And the idea with V0 is just as the name implies, this is your starting point, that moment when you go from idea to code. And to actually use this code, if we go back for a second to the code tab after we preview around in different environments, we could actually just copy it right there.
Nice.
Cool. Or if you're extremely lazy, you can just,
I am actually.
well, we love it. You can just go to the CLI command, pop that into a terminal, into the Next.js project, and it'll not only make a component with the generated code, but also install the shadcn UI dependencies you need to make it real.
Nice.
Pretty sweet.
Yeah, and we can, looks like we can check out different screen sizes here as well too.
And
Maybe-
change the theme.
Ooh. You know what, I'm a serif font fan. Let's do
Amazing.
that. Yeah, or maybe we switch it up for this one. Wow.
Serifs are great.
Fancy.
Yes.
Fancy.
Thank you, Lee.
Awesome, thank you.
We've been working hard to make V0 even faster, more reliable, and more accessible. We've significantly improved the speed and efficiency of our underlying models so you can generate code in just a matter of seconds. We've also enhanced the reliability of the entire platform, ensuring V0 is there when you need it. V0 now also automatically tries to add ARIA attributes to all of its generated code. And while it's not perfect yet, it does bring us one step closer to industry standards for inclusive user interfaces. You can try it today and visit v0.dev to get started. So V0 lets you go from code to idea in seconds. It's leveraging AI to help jumpstart your next big thing. But what about building AI native experiences yourselves? Companies like OpenAI, Perplexity, Grok, Pika, Leonardo, Suno, and Hume have all chosen Vercel as their front-end cloud. And today, you can too. And again, when it comes to building these experiences, Vercel is there to give you the tools that you need. And that's where the Vercel AI SDK comes in. It's a TypeScript framework that handles the complexities of building AI native applications so you can focus on raising $7 trillion for your seed round, or just getting that internal promotion, instead of writing boilerplate code. You could think of it like this. What Next.js does for React, the AI SDK does for language models. And companies like Zapier have already adopted the AI SDK. They just launched their new automation platform called Zapier Central, which is built with Next.js, Vercel, and the AI SDK. This app gives you an AI-based chat workspace where you can automate bots and work across over 6,000 apps through their platform. The AI SDK is organized into two pillars. The AI SDK core is the foundation upon which everything else is built. It's a unified API for working with language models from all major providers: OpenAI, Mistral, Anthropic, Grok, the big G, you name it. And best of all, you can even build your own. You can kind of think of it like an ORM, but instead of for databases, it's for language models. And it abstracts away all the quirks and nuances between providers. With the AI SDK core, integrating an LLM comes down to just two simple questions. What kind of data do I want to generate? Is it going to be text or a structured object? And then, how do I want it delivered? It's either going to be all at once or bit by bit, streamed incrementally. And then, Switching between providers is as easy as changing just a single line of code. You want to try out Mistral's latest model they launched last night? No problem. Or check out GPT-4o? Easy. So we all know that chatbots are all the rage. But building a basic chat interface still actually requires a decent amount of boilerplate. You got state management, streaming text parsing, lifecycle hooks. It's just a lot to do and a lot to mess up. And that's why we created the AI SDK UI, our second pillar. With just 3 framework-agnostic hooks, use chat, use completion, and use assistant, you can build a fully functional streaming chatbot in just about 50 lines of code. It's actually that simple. But we're not just building text-based chatbots anymore. That's so 6 months ago. With the AI SDK's React Server Components APIs, you can actually go further. You can now go beyond just plain text and give chatbots rich, component-based interfaces with what we're calling generative UI. So whether you're using your existing components or new ones, or generating them on the fly like we just saw with V0, React Server Components and the AI SDK present the ideal architecture for streaming these next-gen user experiences. If this all sounds pretty wild, it's because it is. So let's take a look at a quick demo to show you what I mean. So here's a chatbot built with the AI SDK and Next.js. In addition to plain text responses like, let's just type here, what is love? And we'll tell it, we'll just submit it. It can actually do a lot more. For example, this chatbot is wired up to be a scheduling assistant. And instead of just responding with plain text, if I ask to, let's say, book a meeting with Lee at 2 p.m. today to talk about the movie Her, if I hit submit here, we're going to get a beautiful schedule component. It's going to be interactive. And I can confirm the meeting. I can lock in the details. And it's fully wired into the chat experience. And why don't we move the hackathon to the weekend, because that's what we always do. What's awesome is I can have this interactive experience without leaving the conversation. It's truly, truly an AI-native experience. With the new Stream UI method, we built all of this. And it's part of the AI SDK. And it makes building these kinds of experiences with these streaming interfaces even easier to build. You can mix text, tools, and function calling with React Server Components to build AI-native experiences. And best of all, because of React Server Components, you can stream these UIs without the need for heavy client-side JavaScript unless it's necessary, which means your apps can be more interactive and responsive without sacrificing performance. The AI SDK is your toolkit for building enterprise-grade AI applications easier than ever before. It's available today, so check out the documentation at sdk.vercel.ai. And you can start exploring the possibilities and start creating. Or, better yet, you can start iterating. To tell us more, here's Greta Workman, VP of Product Marketing.
Cloud is all about giving you the tools to prioritize your user experience, to focus on what makes your product great, and quickly iterate. I know we all love localhost, but you can't iterate on localhost alone. You need feedback. Putting out great products is a team sport. But historically, getting to a state where you can get useful feedback has been hard. Sure, you can send screenshots, you can try to simulate experiences, or hack together separate infrastructure or complex staging pipelines, like this person is doing. But it can be weeks of dev time, and at larger organizations, it can mean spending up to 30% of your infrastructure budget on just the dev, test, and staging environments alone. With Vercel, this isn't a separate step. Every change you commit gets built and deployed as a live URL, a standalone environment that you can share with your team. And today, this is available whether you're using GitHub, GitLab, Azure DevOps, or your own CI. This allows you to ship smaller and remove dependencies across teams or branches. And because this is live production-grade infrastructure, It's easier to test across browsers and try interactions. Share with your team exactly how your users would experience it. This is consistently called out as one of our most impactful features of our DX platform. United Airlines has been working hand in hand with our partner, AmericanEagle.com, on their Gate of the Future initiatives, with signage at airports around the world that will be served up by Vercel. Preview deployments and comments have been a game changer in making faster release cycles and team collaboration. But beyond automating your CI/CD and bringing more people into your development process, these preview deployments also come with their own set of developer tools, which give you more functionality to easily collaborate, debug, QA, wherever you're building. Let me show you what this is all about and how we use the toolbar at Vercel. All right, so at Vercel, we are big on dogfooding. You've probably heard us talk about iterate to greatness. You heard G say, seeing is believing. To us, yeah, we talk about iterate to greatness all the time. It means always be iterating. To us, that means inside of comments, inside of the toolbar. Being a Vercelian means seeing comments everywhere you go. Whether you're in a preview deployment of a new dashboard feature or you're browsing the production website of Vercel, you'll see comments wherever you go. We use comments to make bug reports, to make copy suggestions, and tons more. So we just launched this site recently. You'll see we kind of got a lot of stuff going on. Let's take a look. So this is the toolbar. You'll see we have, you can see your inbox, you can see who else is online, you can share this with your team. Let's take a look at some of these comments. So Alina thinks we've got too many hyphens going on in this subhead. Respectfully, I'm going to say no. Disagree. Here's one. Okay, Dan thinks we've got some inconsistent text wrapping. Let me see what browser he's on. Okay, cool. Now, if I wanted to, I could make a linear ticket for my design engineering team so they could turn this into a bug report and fix it. This also integrates with Jira or directly into Slack, other productivity tools. Then we've got some copy changes, I think, too. We use, like many of our customers, we use Vercel as the head to our headless CMS, which makes it really easy to integrate with CMSs directly and find the copy changes, find where that content lives in the CMS, and make quick changes. So here I could just open this up in Contentful, make the change, and because of Vercel draft mode, you're able to see what that looks like before pushing live to production. This makes it a lot easier for me as a marketer to get in there and make changes without needing to kind of involve our developer team. But we've also got a lot of extra dev tools in here that make it easier for debugging, making sure that you're always staying on top of web standards like accessibility and core web vitals. So here we can dig into any of the layout shifts that are happening on the page. No layout shifts, nice. Interaction timing, this is a new core web vital, INP, that Google launched recently. So you can see kind of how your interactions on the site are working. Looks like we're all green. Awesome. Accessibility audit to make sure you're always keeping up with accessible standards and things like that. And then my favorite, the OG card. We're very big on OGs at Vercel, so we want to make sure that everything looks good before we ship to socials. So the toolbar and previews are really helpful in iterating and making quick changes to the site. But how do you make sure that you're rolling things out correctly, that you're making the right changes? Show of hands, who here is using feature flags to roll out their products? All right, cool. Who's just YOLOing builds out as they're ready? Yeah, okay. You're just force pushing the vein when the vibes are right. Sick. Has anyone been scooped, by the way, by Jane Wong on Twitter? She tends to find some feature flags and scoops you. Don't worry, we've got you covered there soon, too. No, but in all seriousness, we love flags for experimentation, for safe rollouts and QA. They help us work across teams better. Whether you have millions of users or you haven't launched yet, feature flags are a way to not just de-risk the tech side of the house, but also de-risk your roadmap, to make sure you're building the right things. Are you talking about them in the right ways? I, as a product marketer, everything I do centers around a feature flag. As we're building, I can be in the product and test out new features and functionality. I can work with beta customers to understand how they're using the feature and make sure the messaging is on point. In front of some of our larger e-com customers, using feature flags for experimentation or even just flipping on a promotion at the right time can mean tens of millions of dollars in improved conversion rates and revenue capture. But we see companies hesitate to work with flags for two reasons, our two favorite things to talk about at Vercel: developer experience and user experience. Flags are a little hard to integrate. They can add complexity to the rollout process, and sometimes if you're doing things on the client side, it can degrade performance. So I want to talk about a few things that we're doing to help make flags adoption easier. So a couple months ago, you may have noticed a new addition to your Vercel toolbar, this little toggle here. This toggle allows you to bring the flags workflow into your dev and preview environments. It can integrate with any flags provider like Optimizely or LaunchDarkly or Split. And it gives you the ability for your team members to simulate the state of the flag right from the Vercel toolbar. So you, as a developer, designer, QA engineer, CEO, can experience these flows just as your user would. Since we rolled this out, behind a flag, of course, to our beta users, companies like Perplexity and Leonardo AI have flipped the switch on their toolbars over 20,000 times. Who here knows Notion? Yeah, sick. We love Notion at Vercel. Notion is a simple, powerful workspace where millions of teams and individuals, including us, write, plan, collaborate, create. They use feature flags to run experiments, to control public rollouts of big launches. Here, they're using feature flags to roll out a new homepage design they've been working on and to test out some new messaging. So you can see they're going to simulate the flag so they can make changes, see how it looks like for their users, without having to go back to their flags provider and coordinate that swap. And since this override can be used anywhere the toolbar is present, you can simulate that user experience in your dev, test, preview, production environments. You can also share those overrides with your collaborators so they can see exactly what you're working on as well. And today, we're integrating your flags workflow even deeper across our DX platform, starting with web analytics. Now you'll be able to break down your page views and custom events based on the feature flags that are active. Soon, you'll be able to also see flags that are active in your logs and flags-related impacts to things like Speed Insights and Core Web Vitals, no matter what framework or flag provider you're using. By the way, Notion, love the site, great use of color. That's helpful if you've already got flags up and running, but pulling those into your code and using them correctly can also be hard. Today, we're also making it more straightforward to pull feature flags into your Next.js app by giving you the framework to actually use those, the Flags SDK, to use those in your code and use them right, without impacting user performance. With this package, we're making it easier to get initial loads without great layout shifts, and today it's available for Next.js and very soon for SpellKit. So the DX platform helps you preview and ship quickly and safely to iterate on your experience and keep going. We could stop there. That alone has helped our customers ship up to 6 times faster. But let's bring G back on to keep going and talk more about where we're going.
Thank you, Greta. At Vercel, we believe that developer experience and user experience go hand in hand. They're not a dichotomy. So we've built fast and secure infrastructure for building and deploying with your favorite front-end frameworks. Deep framework integration is central to what we do. And it's what ties together the DX platform, where you can iterate quickly with your team, and our managed infrastructure, where you can ship to billions around the globe in an instant. We call that merge, and you might have heard this a few times. It's really important. You may have heard the word framework-defined infrastructure. It's that merge between DX and the framework and the outputs of optimal cloud architecture. The way that it works is that we analyze your code. We start with the application, and then we autonomously create and deploy infrastructure that's fast, scalable, reliable, and secure. It eliminates the need of manual configuration files and infrastructure as code. And most importantly, it reduces the complexity, and it reduces the chance of introducing human error into any kind of rollout, especially when you deploy to production. Now, please welcome to the stage Lee Robb, who's going to talk about innovations in infrastructure and Next.js.
Hey, everyone. It's good to see you all Vercel here in New York and also online. I was just checking the chat. Somebody's already doing a AI count. I think we're at 18. So for the montage, AI. There, we can add it in later. I'm not going to talk too much about AI here. We'll save that for Jared. I'm going to talk about our infrastructure. We all love fast sites, both developers trying to build something that loads really quickly and customers who are trying to build that really snappy product experience. And on Vercel, we give all developers, even y'all in the free tier, the fastest possible experience out of the box. But everything's fast at Hello World, right? We want to help you stay fast over time as your site grows and as you become more successful. So let's talk about some of the improvements we've been making to our function startup times, as well as our global infrastructure to make this possible. And let's start with cold starts. While cold starts aren't really a problem for really large sites, they can be painful for smaller applications. So let's dig in, and let's see how often this happens on the Vercel platform. So Vercel serves about 100 billion requests per week. Decent amount. And a subset of these functions power your Next.js applications, your APIs for your Svelte pages, or your dynamic e-commerce stores built with Nuxt. Now, of that subset, about 0.5 of those function invocations are cold starts. Now, I know what you're thinking. Lee, that's BS. I've felt that. I've had a site that started up slowly. It was painful. And they do exist, especially for customers who have lower traffic sites. Now, while most functions are already warm, we want to help make this fast even when you have a function that starts up slow, and that's the difference between a good or great experience of your product. So, what are we doing about it? Well, what we're going to talk about today are 3 different categories. But first, I want to toss out this poll to you all. So if you could use this QR code or go to ship-vote.vercel.app here in New York or online. I'm curious to hear what you all think is the main reason for a cold start. We're going to have a couple options here for you to check out. Is it Vercel's infrastructure? Is it the framework runtime? Is it user code? Or my favorite, is it a skill issue? If you're talking about me, it probably is a skill issue, so I can see why that one might get more votes than others. So we'll let the votes tally in here a little bit. Got people online, people here. That's a pretty close race. Let's see. Skill issue is it going to win out? Maybe. Okay. Framework runtime takes the lead. The fastest horse in the race. Okay. We'll call it for here. We've been digging in further on all of these options, and we want to talk about how we can improve this startup time across the infra, across the framework code, as well as user code. So all 3 of these make up a cold start, even though sometimes it's a skill issue for me as well, too. So let's start with our infrastructure. Vercel functions now get proactively initialized. You can think about this kind of like how prefetching works in Next.js. So as a request to a function comes in, we're able to automatically start up that function ahead of time with no manual work required. You don't need to go in and tweak any knobs. It just keeps it fast. Now, let's say you do have a cold start, which does happen. How can we make that as fast as possible? Well, of course, as the kids are doing, we have to rewrite it in Rust. That's the solution, rewrite in Rust. Now, I know it's kind of a meme, but it actually has been extremely impactful for us. So we recently announced our Rust-powered Vercel functions, and we've seen 80 millisecond faster cold starts on average, and 500 milliseconds faster cold starts in the largest applications. And this is data coming from real Vercel customer traffic as well, too. So that's our infra. For the framework in Next.js, we've been working hard over the last year to minimize the framework runtime size when it gets bundled into a Vercel function. And also, we've tried to remove as many unused dependencies as possible, because a smaller runtime means a faster startup time. So that's some framework changes. But let's get to the good stuff. Let's get to what we're doing for your code. So most of this cold start comes from the code that's provided into the function. And we think there's an opportunity here. What can we do here? Ideally, there was a way that we could just optimize this user code for you. Well, today, we're excited to announce bytecode optimized Vercel functions which we've been validating with select customers. We've seen up to 30% faster cold starts for larger applications from these bytecode optimized functions. And this is huge because most of that cold start time is from the heaviest object in the world, my node modules folder. It animated off the screen, there's so much. So let's talk a little bit about how this works, how this bytecode optimization works. So a visitor comes into our site and invokes a function, and then the code, my source code, gets read and compiled down into that bytecode. Can you believe that? At runtime, it's parsing and compiling all of that code before just ultimately ending up in this, that's real bytecode. I mean, if it all ends up as bytecode, couldn't we just give the function bytecode directly? And well, that's exactly what we can now do with Vercel functions. This is going to be rolling out to all customers in the coming weeks, and we're really excited to see these further improvements to cold starts. Now, what's better than running compute or having a cold start or no cold starts if you don't have to run any compute at all? So let's talk about partial pre-rendering, which was a new experimental rendering model which we introduced in Next.js 14. With PPR, you can optimize a significant portion of your page to be static. Then you can leave holes for the dynamic content defined by your React suspense boundary. So the static parts can get streamed to visitors instantly from the nearest Vercel region without blocking and waiting until the personalized components, like the cart, or my user profile, or that promotion that's going to allow me to get 40% off. So those are able to then stream in on demands. So this not only means that cold starts now are more rare and faster, but they also get to happen in parallel while you're running these static fetches and the dynamic content is streaming in. Now, we've been making improvements to PPR for many months now, and we're looking for your feedback as you experiment with it and try it out. To make this easier, you can now try out PPR on a single route versus opting in your entire application, and that change is included today with the Next.js 15 release candidate. Woo! Yeah, I'm pumped about this one. It's jam-packed with features. First up, we have support for the React 19 release candidate, just recently released. We have experimental support for the React compiler, very, very exciting. I'm looking forward to using that in my own applications. Secondly here, something I've heard from many of you in the crowd, many of you online. Hi, Mom. Please improve caching in the Next.js app router. And I'm really excited to share that we've changed the defaults for caching things like fetch and route handlers and the client router cache, all these things, you want to opt into that behavior. So starting with Next.js 15, we've heard your feedback and made those changes, which is great. Yeah, caching improvements. Woo! And as I mentioned, you can incrementally adopt partial pre-rendering. We also have a new design for Create Next App. Thank you, Evil Rabbit and Yaz. And it also now allows you to opt in to using TurboPack. So TurboPack just hit 100% of test passing for Next Dev, and we're really close. We're so close to marketing it as stable, so we really want you to try this out on your new applications, see how things work, and give us some feedback. All right, that's all for Next.js today. I'm going to welcome Ty to talk about security.
Really appreciate that. Let's talk security. Foundational pillar of everything we build at Vercel, and woven into our internal systems, our development processes, and the infrastructure we secure for you. As you saw, it's in our DNA. Our vision for Vercel security is simple. Every website, every web application. We're going to try something new right now. Say this with me. Secure by default. We believe protection against modern threats like DDoS attacks should be foundational. This vision guides product roadmaps as we strive to bring even greater visibility and control to teams of all sizes worldwide. At Vercel, we work hard to ensure our customers can have peace of mind knowing we're committed to industry standards and frameworks with our ISO 27001, our SOC 2 Type 2 certifications, and that they can trust that we're doing what we can to enable them to be successful with compliance and regulations. PCI DSS, HIPAA, GDPR, and the one over there that's still iterating to greatness. But let's look at Vercel security and the breadth of coverage it provides behind the scenes. As with all teams, it starts with people. Access security. Simply put, how can we ensure that the right people have the right access to do the right work, all at the right time? You'll see this in action with deployment protection, where we can lock it down using password protection or Vercel authentication, or perhaps restrict by trusted IPs. We also offer industry standards, SAML with directory sync, and role-based access control. So even our largest enterprise customers can focus on iteration speed, not permissions management and user provisioning. Next, let's talk about infrastructure security. This represents our work to continuously harden our infrastructure against pervasive attacks. This includes our TLS infrastructure that helps automatically provision and renew those certs, and secure compute, which creates a trusted perimeter around your application and its connected services. In this example, our customer, Under Armour, they went ahead with their digital transformation to protect their Salesforce Commerce Cloud instantly, unlocking a secure path for composable architecture. And believe it or not, the Vercel firewall has been protecting your infrastructure for years with inbound attacks and managing and mitigating malicious attacks at layer 2 and 3, like SYN floods and DDoS attacks. But in reality, it's been operating behind the scenes. And by behind the scenes, it's been a black box. You got nothing on the screen. And well, that's why today we're introducing tools that bring greater visibility to attacks we're already stopping. Just this past 2 weeks alone, we have some really amazing stats. But one of the key things is we're targeted with SYN floods all the time. Now, those malicious requests that are stopped by the Vercel firewall without you having to lift a finger, which will now be visible directly in your dashboard. And we're bringing that visibility to all security events. Our North Star is complete automation. Say it with me again, secure by default. But while we can continue to do that with our investments into secure frameworks and infrastructure, you're the only one that understands your application, your audience that are unique to your business needs. And that brings me to, particularly, application security. We're moving beyond just automated platform, layer 2 and 3 security to empower you and your teams to customizable layer 7 protections. We want you to be able to control every single request, so you can tailor measures that fit your security needs to your business. And we're doing that with the latest enhancements to our Vercel firewall. I'm particularly excited to announce the Vercel Web Application Firewall. The WAF is a Vercel native, which of course means done the Vercel way. You get reliability, scalability, and of course, first-party security without compromising on speed. The WAF includes a powerful customs rule engine that puts you in control and decide how to handle your traffic. Allow it, challenge it, block it, log it, based on characteristics like path, user agent, IP address, geolocation, maybe JAW4 fingerprints. We also offer managed rule sets that help you navigate and handle OWASP top 10 protection for those that want zero config security. Your security teams now have direct control over the front-end deployments right from within Vercel. They can fine-tune incoming traffic, ensuring only legitimate traffic gets through. It's an unexpected, undesired spike occurs. You can leverage challenge mode to temporarily challenge all of those requests while you investigate. Then simply create a custom rule. And today, we're also announcing rate limiting in beta, which means firewall level request frequency enforcement. It's a mouthful. So you can control how even your legitimate users access your applications. The WAF will leverage Vercel's inherent understanding of your app and the underlying optimal infrastructure that we take care of for you, giving this firewall unique insight into context and even content of each request, which will help you achieve security gains that most security solutions simply can't match. These rules also get to leverage our work over the past 8 years with our optimized data propagation pipelines. Now, with that same infrastructure that ensures instant domain assignments and 300 millisecond ISR replications, your firewall gets propagated in milliseconds. So, they asked me to do a demo, but how do you really demo a firewall? And then I thought to myself, I'm a security guy. We've all experienced this 30-minute wait time of waiting something to go out to the edge, the network, out into the world, and it's pretty painful. So, seeing is believing. And let's get this in action. Lee, let's get you back up on stage.
All right. Got a good tag team going here.
Everyone still has access to the app, ship-vote.vercel app, or scan the QR code. And when you went to the site at first, you may have noticed attack challenge mode, but it could have occurred really quickly and you didn't actually see it in action. So, let's kick things up a notch, Lee. Let's take a look at some of this traffic in the dashboard, shall we? Where's it all coming from?
Well, it looks like we have a custom rule, hello NYC.
Oh, interesting. Maybe we were prepared in advance.
What is that? Let's dig in here. We can see a bunch of different user agents. Many of y'all here in the crowd logging in on your phones, iPhone or Androids. Interesting. Maybe we want to deny this traffic.
I think we should. Why don't we just stop all of New York?
Let's do it. Well, we have this rule, hello NYC, it's logging. Let's change that to deny. We're going to review our changes, make sure everything's good. So let's publish that. Why don't we all refresh our phones? Is it updated already? Do we see it?
Was that
There we
300
go.
milliseconds? It's updated.
How about that?
Longer are the days of waiting 30 minutes. Now we can do it in milliseconds.
Totally.
So why don't we get rid of that rule and try something a little bit more interestingly?
Agreed.
Let's throw that back.
Yep.
And let's go deeper into those user agents. I think that's an area where we've all struggled with getting legitimate traffic to our site. Let's look at something a little bit more interesting.
Yeah, now you could imagine somewhere in here we might have some malicious traffic, maybe specifically for y'all in the crowd. If you try to run some scripts against this, maybe on your machine, we can dig in and view that and filter by user agents or countries or IP addresses. We have all this information we can dig into. So let's say, for example, someone in here was malicious and we decide that we want to block that traffic.
Let's block it.
Let's do it. So if we go back to configure, you'll see I still have this one change pending from when I allowed all of the New York traffic back in. Everyone at home is just laughing at us. It was like, haha, I can view the site. I'm going to make a new rule. We can call this my new rule. And maybe I want to make a request here based on the request path, maybe the user agent. I can look for some script, the query, cookies, IP address, region, city, state, or even unique fingerprints for that traffic. So we can go even further than user requests. But you know what? Maybe we'll do a user agent, and if anybody tries to do anything with Go HTTP clients, running those Go scripts, anything that contains any of that, we could then log it, we could block it, challenge it, or even bypass it. So this looks pretty good. I'll save this rule. And we can go back, publish these changes. And now I think New York should be back online.
Are we back?
Are we back? Are we so back?
I think we're so back.
We're so back. All right. There we go. Awesome.
Awesome, Lee. Thank you so
Yes,
much.
thank you.
So, you've seen it. Our mission is to make security more than just a defense against threats. We're committed to offering a platform where security is inherent, an integral part of your experience. Vercel Security scales with modern, global web. It's designed to understand the applications it's securing, so it never gets in the way of the user experience. And it gives you, yes you, control of how you handle that traffic. And as the web and the threats continue to evolve and AI workloads increase the exponential impact of these attacks, Vercel Security enhancements will not only secure your applications, but also empower you to innovate and scale with confidence, knowing you don't need an additional service or CDN in front of Vercel. Thank you. With that,
Gotta love a successful live demo, or a handful. Thank you, team. So we started Vercel with two simple commands, nextdev and Vercel deploy. 8 years later, those commands have transformed into the front-end cloud, a platform that empowers you to ship building great world-class applications. Today, the web is more powerful than ever, as AI is taking it to the next level. we're seeing major changes in how we create things and even how we understand the world around us. Remember 2 years ago? No ChatGPT, no Perplexity, no Claude, no Scarlett Johansson, no Midjourney. And now, they're practically everywhere, extensions of our lives. But here's the thing. This isn't just about geeking out on new technology. It's truly about unlocking a whole new level of creativity for everybody. And all of the features we showed today, they were built to really empower you and to lower the barrier of entry to this technology. I really want you all to go out and build products that make people think, wow, how does this not exist before? Or how is this so fast? So the next generation of developers gets to bring ideas to the web a lot faster. They're unblocked. And with all these technologies, we can bring really meaningful changes to their lives. Everyone here is invited to build the future of the web with us. And this is really all about why Vercel exists. This is why we invest so much into our developer experience to empower developers. This is why we're bringing all these AI capabilities into the platform. It's really all about helping the web win. So let's transform the web together. Let's blow some minds. LFG.
So everyone's very hot on AI these days. It's actually pretty easy for early stage startups to adopt this stuff. You hack on the AI SDK from Vercel, and then a few weeks later, you're asking me for $7 trillion. Easy as pie. But for enterprises, it's not as simple, right? They need to think about security and resilience, and we have to figure out what the real use cases are beyond just a chatbot on your homepage. So with that, I would love to welcome Paige from Google DeepMind, Sunny from Grok, and Mikdad from OpenAI to talk about what they're seeing in the enterprise.
Hi. Hello, everyone. Vercel, thank you so much for having us here today, and thank you guys all for coming and spending your Thursday here. This panel is all about AI for the enterprise, and I don't think we could have three better guests to speak on the subject, so I'm so excited to dive into it. Starting with the details, do you guys have any surprising or unexpected ways that your customers have leveraged your technology to date?
So I think I'll start with the OpenAI side of it. I see it so often that it's hard to tell what is surprising and isn't surprising anymore. I think everyone is doing things in different industries. The healthcare ones are probably the most interesting because I didn't expect them to dive well into it because of the privacy concerns. But healthcare is diving in with both feet. And I think even some of the new multimodality stuff is starting to become very interesting. When we released Voice Engine, the one that was like the nearest and dearest to my heart was there was a patient that had suffered a neurological disease and she had lost her ability to speak. And what the doctors did was they had her say something and then they found a clip from her when she was in elementary school and gave her her voice back. And even the idea of thinking through something like that was like phenomenal to me. So just like I think the ingenuity doesn't stop, and the startups are really pushing the boundaries.
I love this question, and agree. It feels like AI is getting applied to everything now, so it's hard to pluck out what's new and exciting versus what's just going to be steady in the world in the next month. My favorite use cases, and I might be a little bit biased, are in the AI for software development domain. So places where I've seen really interesting multimodal applications of Gemini are around things like being able to feed the model a video and have it automatically create friction logs for you. Being able to do really interesting things like v0.dev, so you have a screenshot and you're able to generate code or generate something that can create a mock-up of the UI itself, going from Figma designs to actual live code. But the multimodal scenarios are the ones that I am most excited about in the next few months.
I think nothing as humanly touching as what McDad said, but I think like there's a couple of use cases where we've seen people spin up like hundreds or thousands of agents in parallel. And so there's this cool service called like globe.engineer, and it does research. And so if you're coming out to New York and say New York pizza, and when you guys travel, if you do a trip, you open like tens of tabs to try to figure out everything you want to do. It'll just do it all in like, nice. 5 or 10 seconds. And I think that's kind of really powerful when you see that.
Very cool. So this is obviously all about selling to customers, working with enterprises. We have a lot of like enterprise decision makers in the audience here today. A company that hasn't adopted AI, they want to, they know they should. How do you recommend that they even approach this process? Building a team around it, figuring out who to partner with, when to do it. It's a broad question, but what are your sort of personal approaches and advice when you're working with customers?
I got started last time. You want to start this one?
Sure, yeah. What we try to tell people is start with your data. I think that's like the most important thing because you can start to do that work before you have to make any choices on models or anything like that. And then I think it's important to really have a strong evaluation framework because there are lots of different models, even from within a single company or different companies. So I think like we always tell people, start with your data. Really, this is the chance for you to fix your data models or even your data management. Do that work first because then it'll really pay off. And then have a strong eval framework so that you can move between the different models and see their functionality. That's where we tell people to start. And then it becomes easier to plug in the stuff higher up the stack.
Yeah, I agree. Having a strong evals philosophy is really, really important, especially given that AI is really powerful. I've been in this space for quite a while. But it's really not anything without actually having applied and grounded use cases. So you are being tasked with applying generative AI to improve your core business. You are the expert in your core business. So being able to define crisply the kinds of things that you're hoping AI will accelerate, the new capabilities that you want it to drive for your products, and building evals around them to be able to understand which models are already pretty great out of the box, which ones need to be augmented with some sort of fine-tuning data, and then also whether or not it's actually sort of getting the gains that you would have expected is really, really important. There are a lot of times when AI isn't required, and being choiceful about those times is really critical too.
One more thing on the evals is it also helps as the models become more powerful.
Yes.
Because it can help you eliminate things that you have in your workflow that you don't need there anymore.
Yeah, and to see how models improve over time.
Yeah, I think I'll take a different path. I think one of the first things that like every organization needs to do is awareness. So what we've seen a lot of organizations do is deploy something like ChatGPT Enterprise in-house, and they let everyone do whatever they need to do. And a lot of the interesting use cases come from users that you wouldn't expect. Like marketing turns out to be one of the biggest users internally, and they create their own use cases. We've seen companies like Moderna roll out like 750 GPTs internally without any API use cases. So like so many internal things. And then when you're ready to go, like I think the big thing is like your subject matter experts, just like everybody said, are coming from inside your organization, and they'll know best how to apply and scale. And then when you do scale, like obviously evaluation is a big deal. And one of the things to keep in mind is that like when a new model does come out, it's not necessarily that it does 10% better than the previous one. It's that it might, but it might do a different 60% than the previous 50% did. So it's important to keep in mind how things change with each model.
Yeah, I love that you mentioned that the marketing team comes up with really interesting generative AI applications. I also, one of the marketing reps within Google had always wanted to do game development. That was kind of a hobby project that they had been trying out on the side. And they were actually able to create a replica of Flappy Bird within the space of just an afternoon. It's really, really powerful to think about how AI is now getting democratized in a way that was never possible before. And means that we're going to see a lot more creativity in terms of these applications than we'd ever seen.
Sounds like the next $7 trillion investment if we're looking for it.
So I think Scarlett Johansson has been mentioned many times in the last hour, and it kind of brings up this idea of risk versus reward when shipping products. How do you guys personally think about how to evaluate the risk versus reward in shipping a product, whether it's at the companies you guys work at or the customers you work with? Because as an organization scales, there's just more and more people that are going to tell you no. There's compliance teams, there's legal teams, and there's entire teams that built around this. So would love to hear your personal philosophies.
Yeah, I can start first this time. Y'all took the lead the last time. The one thing that immediately comes to mind when I hear this question is the sort of the recent AI overviews that were added to Google.com and Google Search. I'm not sure if folks watching online or in the audience have had a chance to play with them just yet, but it's actually able to, in addition to the great search results that show on Google.com after you complete a search, kind of an overview based on all of that content. And that's really, really powerful. We're seeing incredible user satisfaction, lots of people getting to the right answers faster, asking more interesting questions. But that took a lot of kind of courage and work from people all over Google, all over Alphabet in order to actually make it happen. There was a lot of focus within the early days of Google to keep the Google.com search box very simplistic. And so when you have something that's so critical to your core business, making these kind of big changes, even though they might be the right changes and the best changes for users, are really interesting questions that leadership has to consider. And so from that perspective, there was a lot of effort put into user experience, live user testing, making sure that the quality bar is really, really high, and that also translates back to evals, making sure the performance is there, the latency is right. And again, y'all are all the experts in your users. So if you want to be able to make those large-scale changes, you need to make sure that the user experience would land with the audiences you care about.
Yeah, I think kind of building on that, it's also real data versus synthetic data, and then combining that with your cloud philosophies, right? You can start really quickly, totally in the cloud with synthetic data, and you can be, I think that's quite safe. And then you can move towards like hybrid or on-prem environments as well for people that have like real data concerns that they don't want those things to go in the cloud. So you can kind of layer that in as well in terms of your strategy to really think about it.
Yeah, I think so I'm a product guy, so I'm gonna always start with the customer. There's this thing called Sheridan's levels of autonomy. It goes from like the human does everything to the AI does everything and all the steps in between. One of the things in the middle is something along the lines of like the AI informs the human of what it's done. Before that is like the AI provides options for what the human could do. I try to think about that all the time in terms of what's being deployed. And I think about risk reward, it really depends on what your user is willing to tolerate from an error state perspective. So if I take the Vercel example of like code gen, it's actually being presented to developers. And developers are the human in the loop. So can it afford to be wrong? Yeah, probably. Can it afford to be very wrong? Probably there as well. I think that like the idea is if it's meant to solve cold start, then it can solve cold start while accepting risk of it being wrong. You put systems around it to make sure that like it's not going to generate anything unsecure, it's not going to be able to execute without user intervention, and then the user gets to decide what they want to do. If you get into the full autonomous situations where like you're handing over control, then obviously you want to be a little bit more careful in terms of what you do and how you think about things. When we roll out products, obviously safety is #1 concern, But it's like when it comes to developer features, we try to roll them out sooner rather than later because we know that all of you want to have access to them as fast as possible so that you can iterate and you can figure out what's necessary. But if you start with who your user is and what they're going to do, it'll simplify your risk profile.
Yeah, I love what you said about transparency. So if the model is generating content, it's suggesting changes, it's not just automatically applying those changes without visibility to you as an engineer or to your customer, but being able to actually share like, hey, this is my thought process, here's why I think this, these are the changes I would recommend, do you approve?
Absolutely. I think it makes life for the user simpler, especially as they get more familiar with AI. I think in November, nobody knew and everyone was scared. I think the idea is that as all of you build more applications that expose AI to users, the tolerance bar starts to change, and I think we adapt accordingly.
Yep. And now looking at this idea from the other side, for any founders, potential founders, engineers in the audience, when they are trying to secure their first pilot customer or get a company on board as a partner, what is most important? Like, what would you recommend that they go in solving for, empathizing with, or like understanding about their customer? Obviously, it varies on the use case, but advice for these people.
I'm going to give the generic advice, and then we can like iterate a little bit. So I think the first step is solve a problem that your users are extremely passionate about, and do things that are going to solve for pain, not for comfort. I think pain is a much faster selling feature than it is for comfort. A lot of the things that we're seeing are cold start pain problems of like staring at a blank page, not sure what to do, how to work through it. That seems to work quite well as a pattern. But I think that the people that struggle are the ones that are trying to find something that's going to raise the bar, but it's outside the psyche of the user normally.
Yeah, I agree. I think, again, with an AI for software development use case, but we've deployed generative AI pretty significantly around Google internally. So everything from kind of these inner loop processes of generating code, explaining code, all of the usual suspects, chatting about code, to the things that hit the outer loop. So how do you improve code performance? How do you make migrations easier? How do you sort of improve the code review process and actually generate the changes for the person who would be replying to the code reviews? All of those things. And it really resonates a lot more with the partner teams we work with to integrate those Gemini features. When you start targeting the things that they really, really hate spending their time doing. Like, as an engineer, I really, really love building things. Like, I love thinking about hard problems. I love writing code. And so the idea, the notion that models would start doing that makes me really sad, because it's like, that's what I enjoy spending my time doing at work. Really working with people and creating things. But if you tell me like, hey, it makes it easier for your software to be maintained, it makes sure that everything's a lot more secure, that your software is more performant, so you use less compute, or you're able to kind of solve your business problems faster and can focus on what you really enjoy doing, that's a huge value add. And so it motivates the partner teams to kind of move faster, to really consider the experiments as opposed to, thinking about the parts of their day that AI might take away, but they're the parts that they enjoy doing most.
Yeah, what I try to tell entrepreneurs that I come across these days is, enterprises are faster than ever. So like the linear use cases, you should just assume that they can accomplish them, right? Because they can use the same co-pilots and everything else now. So that edge that existed previously between startups and enterprise has really collapsed. So, in this way, you really have to kind of think about the problem where I think you have a lot more leeway when you're a startup. And that's like with AI, it's scale. So a lot of people are taking on problems like, oh, I can, replace a human by doing this thing with a single agent. I think the enterprise are going to pull that off themselves. But where it really becomes differentiated, you're like, well, what if it wasn't one agent working on this, it was 1,000 agents working on it? They just won't think about that problem that way, and I think that's a real kind of, and that's taking advantage of the technology at its core as well. So I try to push people in that direction.
Yeah. Just out of curiosity, do you think there are any industries where startups still have the edge in AI? Because I guess maybe another way of framing that is like, what sectors have surprised you in the way they've adopted AI, and what sectors have been very resistant to like working with companies in the space or adopting or innovating?
I don't think there's anyone that's shied away from it now. I think everyone, and I think if you do the AI count thing, everyone has said it. Everyone wants to say it. Everyone.
It's got to be off for this panel.
I mean, the one that was surprising to me was healthcare, but they're so into it. Like it's unbelievable in terms of like a tool that's being used as part of it. I think the differential is in whether someone is willing to go fully autonomous versus someone is willing to go in an augmented fashion. I think everyone's willing to do augmentation. It's wild in some of the use cases people come up with, even just like educational tutors, like the Khan Academy basically comes forward and teaches you how to be able to learn whatever subject you want. I think those are cool, but like more and more are just coming up everywhere. I don't know that there's a specific industry, what you guys have seen.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that I think about a lot is most of technology for the last 40 years has been like taking paper processes and making them digital and making them somewhat faster. And I think enterprises are still stuck in that, and even leveraging AI to just make those processes even faster. I think now the advantage a startup has, it doesn't have to look backwards at how anything was done before. And so kind of reimagining the problem from scratch, that's where I see some of the most interesting things.
Absolutely. Yeah. Like, we talked a little bit earlier today, I guess, about being able to dynamically create UIs on the fly. So being able to tailor experiences for users based on, perhaps what you know about their interests, what their current focus is in terms of attempting to accomplish a task. And this is a complete reimagination of how the web is going to work.
Yeah, because before we took a form and we just made it digital and everyone got the same form.
And it was point and click, and now so many people are using mobile devices. The point and click kind of tapping on a phone isn't nearly as powerful as being able to use things like voice or video, being able to track things with cameras.
You can get like full personalization now, right? Like that dream of like dynamic content is actually possible.
Absolutely, and the models are getting smaller and smaller, which means that you could even have models put on mobile devices. We're experimenting with this with Gemini Nano, being able to do hyper-personalized experiences for folks that stay local to the device, don't have to make any calls to REST API services. But when you start thinking about all this potential, this field is wide open. And y'all are the experts in how to make the web useful to humans. So useful to humans, useful to agents. So I think if anybody's going to be able to lead the charge in that, it would be the folks in this room.
And then just as we're speaking about the web, 5 years from now, what do you think the AI native web looks like? From two angles, like what is the user experience of the web and the internet? And then how do you think that changes the relationship between like people publishing on the internet and these search engines as they really just become answer engines? Does that like de-incentivize publishers? Curious to get, if you guys have any takes on that, but no worries, we have only a few minutes and many questions.
You want to go?
You're the product guys.
Cool. 5 years is a very long time in AI terms. If we look, and there's only so much I can say, but if we think about like how AI has started to improve, I think the number one thing that has improved with each iteration or each new model is the reasoning capability. So I think you look at like a GPT-3 that was like able to do a lot of things that you would probably call like equivalent to like an elementary school student. It's like it does some stuff, makes some mistakes, but it's kind of good. And then like GPT-4 comes out and it's like 100 times improvement on what 3 was, and the reasoning capability improved, but it's still kind of like a kid. Like it doesn't really do a great job. There's still a lot of mistakes. Multimodal comes around and like everything can happen. I think if you draw the future of the web, it's like, choose your own adventure. I think it'll become something that is, I still strongly believe visual is the way to go. I think that most people learn from like a visual kinesthetic perspective, and like while there is like an auditory element to it, it's kind of an intermediary stage. Like I don't need an audiobook all the time. Sometimes I just want to like scan through a page as fast as possible. But what if it's my page? And like what if it's the way I want it to be? And what if it's curated specifically for me and the content that I want with the layout that I like, with the specifics that I want? And like it's my web. And I think that like AI lets you realize that dream dynamically.
Yeah, I 100% agree. And in addition to all of these great capabilities being brought in through multimodality in models, I'm also really passionate about longer context workflows. So being able to feed the model much more information and have it be able to analyze it very quickly, react to it at very low latencies. So as you were describing, being able to walk around kind of, if I'm curious about the physics of, just things that exist in the room, an apple that I drop on the floor, being able to automatically have that overlain explained to me in a way that I understand, or in a way that would resonate most with me. I think there's so much potential here, and it's not just for kind of having the web just being confined to this two-dimensional screen that we carry around with us, but actually being able to have it persist in the world in three-dimensional space, and being able to be kind of ambient with us as we experience our days.
Yeah, I was going to go with something very similar. Like if you watch movies, sometimes kind of predict our future, or at least guide us in that direction. Like Minority Report and things like that. People don't really have phones, right? And so, I think we're getting closer and closer to a world where you don't need to really stare at a screen and search for stuff on your phone. So I think wearables and things like that will be pretty exciting.
I think playing on the 3D thing for just a 10-second thing, I kind of see that holodeck from Star Trek coming up. I'd love to use it if any of you are going to build that, just by the way.
Give us access to Sora.
Last question, and maybe if everyone could answer in less than a minute, because we have to go, but I'm interested in understanding, like, AI players are all kind of entering the field at a different level of the stack. Grok has an AI processing chip. Google has TPUs. I'm curious, how do you think the compute environment in like 10 years is going to shape up? Are a lot of the large model companies also going to try to deploy some type of hardware, and what are the benefits of having that? There's some rumblings about OpenAI, but he cannot comment.
We can just look at NVIDIA's earnings yesterday and see like the amount, exactly. Hopefully people have been buying that stock for a while. No, I think you can see that the amount of demand is just not slowing down. And I think there's a strong perception, and the folks in this room are going to make that a reality, that the majority of compute going forward is AI compute. So that requires just a total reimagining of data centers and even your laptops, right? And all that, get phones. So I think the opportunity for there to be a lot more AI compute is obvious. I think it's very rare that like one company wins it all, right? This, especially kind of in America, where we want multiple players to be involved in something. So I kind of think it's really exciting to be in the ecosystem.
Strong agree. I think one thing that we can all agree on is that there's not nearly enough compute right now to do all of the things that we truly want to do. And that comes from a training perspective, but even more importantly from this really efficient inference perspective. So being able to run a large variety of models, all specialized for different tasks or general purpose, really quickly, either on mobile devices or in data centers or just kind of around rooms, is really important. And I don't see that slowing down anytime soon. Google is certainly investing both in hardware for our mobile devices, Pixels, things like Android phones, and then also certainly TPUs for both training and inference.
I think it's compute is limited. Everyone needs to scale. Everyone needs to worry about like regional differences too. If you're in the EU, like making sure that you have sufficient there. So there's two ways to do it: like build more, which everyone's trying to do, or make them more efficient, which is what many people are trying to push, right? So like the latest GPT-4 model comes out with like 10 million TPM, so you can scale accordingly by like more efficiency in the models. But the risk is obviously like how much intelligence do you need for your use case, and how far do you want to push that?
Okay, well, I think that is it for this panel. Thank you guys so much for speaking and being here.
Thank you. This was fun.
Thank you.